I'm Anthony Padilla, and I'm curious. What would you do if someone looked at your body when you were born and demanded that you behave and present exactly how the greater population deemed fit, even though deep down you've always known it was a lie? I spent a day with trans women who came to that very conclusion. We'll uncover the truth about the reality of transitioning and the deeply polarizing topics of surgery, detransitioning, and the trans agenda. Hello, Jada!
Hey.
Dylan!
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. Nikki!
Hi, nice to meet you.
By the way, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Visit betterhelp.com/Padilla because sometimes existing is exhausting. Now, and I just want to say you are serving real right now. Yeah. As a cisgender man,
Yes.
I can definitely say that.
Yeah, maybe bleep when you say it, but don't bleep when I say it.
Can you define what trans means?
When you are assigned a specific gender at birth and then you feel differently than the gender you were assigned.
There's no one way to be trans. Basically, if you identify with a different gender, you're under the trans.
Can you define trans women specifically?
We were assigned male at birth, and we now are female.
Is there an age range when people typically start to feel like they are different than what they've been assigned?
Almost all of us feel that right away as a kid.
Straight out the womb, you're like, this is wrong.
Excuse me, don't put M on my birth certificate.
Someone
I think
f***ed up.
so.
When did you realize that you felt different than what you were assigned?
Around 6 years old. I always loved girly things, and I was told to repress those. I wanted to grow out my hair and like play with Barbies and like be with the girls.
I would always just think oh, I wish there was a button, or I would just wake up one day and I was the woman. I would think about that constantly.
I went to my mom when I was 4 and I said, Mom, God made a mistake. He put a girl into a boy's body. And she was like, babe, God doesn't make mistakes. You're perfect. And so from that moment on, I just kind of tucked that away.
It wasn't until I was in my early 20s that I actually had the realization, I am trans. When I first found out, I was like, oh, no, please, no.
Were you still trying to be like, oh, I should repress this feeling more?
Pretty much. I was like, maybe we could push down a little bit further.
The first time I ever saw a trans person was on Jerry Springer. They were called men back then. They were called lady boys, and them being like, oh, I tricked my boyfriend. Guess what? I'm a man. Those kind of conversations hurt society into us thinking it's okay to treat trans people this way. I myself, from society norms, felt uncomfortable by it. But now, looking back, I felt uncomfortable because I was afraid of opening up and being my true self.
Was it more difficult to come out to yourself or to others?
Myself. It was so hard to come to the realization that not only did I have similarities to the people that I was most afraid of, but that I could also be just like them.
There's people that I feel pushed me to repress, and I feel I've more of internalized that. I was repressing myself the most and the most transphobic towards myself. I would think oh, trans people are weird. Before I transitioned, I feel it was a deep insecurity because I was low-key does me do.
I knew I was trans at 18. I always put it to the side and was stop having those thoughts. You shouldn't be thinking like that. You shouldn't be feminine. That's what I regret most is not loving myself more or listening to myself. And the times that I was screaming. On my 21st birthday, I finally came out to my mom. We had a long 2-hour crying talk about how I felt. Coming out to my dad, though, has been really hard. And I remember him coming over to my apartment and I had all of my hormone pills out on the counter. And he asked me hey, what are these for? Why are you taking all these pills? He thought I had HIV. And I was like, no, I don't have HIV. I'm transitioning. That didn't go over well with him. And because of it, we don't have a relationship now. It is unfortunate, but it's more unfortunate for them.
Hard. After 9 months of kind of dipping my toes in, I came out to my girlfriend at the time. That was kind of the hardest part, to just say it out loud. I even had to say it in the mirror over and over, before even saying it to a person. Then I had to come out to my parents. My mom cried. She was very confused. So was my dad. They thought it was a trend that I was just kind of hopping onto. I think everyone thought I was like joking or something. Like no one was really took me seriously.
How do you think being trans has affected your life most?
It's been an insane ride just because I'm simultaneously going viral while also trying to transition.
Does it feel like the entire world is watching you as you go through these very personal, vulnerable experiences?
Yes. Yeah, I never expected to be an influencer or a content creator. And it is scary to be putting all of your most vulnerable parts of yourself online for people to just pick apart. But I do realize now that what I'm doing can help a lot of people. So I'm trying to have a good time. I had no idea how to become the woman that I wanted to be. And so that's what I'm trying to let people in on. Because there were so many times as a boy that I either lashed out or I did things kind of recklessly just because I was so unhappy with who I was. And now when I look at myself on camera or just even in the mirror, I'm like, oh yeah, that feels about right. I'm just trying to be happy. Like, babes, meteor could hit at any moment. And if I die a girl, that's a beautiful thing.
What does transitioning entail?
Transitioning for everyone is a little bit different. We all have to go through a psychiatric evaluation. A lot of us start HRT. That's like the first step. Some people just take blockers. Everyone wants to know about trans surgeries. And honestly, like, yes, a lot of trans people do get surgeries, but we do that to fit into societal norms.
For me, transitioning was starting to take hormones. Your skin gets way softer. You lose a lot of body hair. Your fat completely redistributes. Your hair gets softer. You just get here, basically. Felt a lot less anger since the testosterone's gone. It's just no more. What's funny is that all of the hormones we take are actually prescribed to cis people in other ways. In the testosterone blockers, they are used to prevent hair loss for men and women. Spironolactone is the other testosterone blocker. That's just an acne medication. I feel like people make it out to be more of a scary thing, but all of these things people normally take.
I had actually started hormones as a non-binary person before I had even come out as a trans woman. I know that there are surgeries that I'm very much looking into. And because I'm so new to my transness, there's actually some wait times that I have to wait. So I potentially, and probably will, look very different in a couple years.
You'll have this to look back on.
Weird. Why pass Dylan?
When people hear transition, they assume it means physical. Is it more than physical?
I think absolutely. I think it's a mindset. I think it's how you see yourself. I think it's how the world sees you.
If you want to look at it at a more old school transsexual ideology, transitioning means doing the surgeries, getting your meds. But I would say the more new progressive way of thinking is transitioning is however you want to do it.
Do you think it's appropriate for people to ask about surgery?
Like, I wouldn't ask you right now about, like, okay, let's talk about what's in your pants.
I'm willing and ready.
But that's after we shoot. You wouldn't ask somebody about their privates and then all of a sudden, because they're trans, you feel like you can. My parents have said, like, when they tell their friends, the first question they'll ask is like, oh, is Dylan getting the surgery? Ew, don't talk to my parents about my private parts, you nasty perv. And I feel bad because I'm like, oh my God, like, my family should not have to answer that question.
Yeah. Why do you think it's become synonymous with trans?
So them in their mind, they want to label me either as a girl with a penis or a girl with vagina. Like, that's how their heads work. And they're like, okay, we just need to know which box to put Dylan in. I can't wait till we get to a place where someone says they're a woman, we believe they're a woman because they said so.
Everyone's just obsessed, like, about the bottom surgery. A lot of cis people kind of get really fixated on.
Like it's a requirement?
Some people believe that. The majority of trans people, men and women, don't get bottom surgery. Me personally, I don't necessarily feel like I need it. I'm very happy with girl dick. I think that's beautiful.
You have a tattoo over here of an angel with showing the girl dick.
I love girl dick. It's very beautiful. It's delicious. It's invasive. That's the other aspect of it. It's it's expensive. Literally have your genitals turned inside out. You're bedridden for like a month. I know girls who are like, they can't go out because they gotta dilate, which is just sticking dildos in your new vagina and expanding it and making sure it's very big, giving it very much depth. I feel like I'm motivated more by the dysphoria of feeling masculine than specifically feeling feminine.
What's been the most unexpected part about transitioning?
Women, just whether it's trans or cis, that have like let me into the club, especially the women that I knew before transitioning that have like been like, oh yeah, come, like here's our secrets.
What kind of secrets are they telling you?
Well, sorry.
Shit.
Can't tell. Thank you to the women that initially, right at the beginning of my journey, accepted me from the get-go, because that prompted me to keep going.
Can you define a dead name?
The name that you were assigned at birth. And why we call it dead name is specifically because we want it dead. Like,
You want that name dead?
Yeah, I'm like, don't talk about it. We don't know them. Sorry, you had your time.
We're all about the present. Are you living? No. Okay, you're dead.
It really bothers me that people think that I have to change my name in order to be a woman. The top comment on like every single one of my videos is, okay, but like, what would your girl name be? Like, my girl name is Dylan.
Do you think it's appropriate to ask what people's dead names were?
Oh, no. No, no. Basically, no.
How many times can you say no in 6 seconds?
No.
How important are pronouns to you?
It's one of those things that people, I don't want to say they should start respecting, but they need to start respecting it. Because if someone says that their pronouns are she, her, hers, that's not up for debate, right? Like it just is. That's how they identify, period.
I'm a she, her girl. I hate being called any other pronoun. If anyone calls me he, that's like literally the worst thing. It's less of like me lashing out on whoever said it and more of like, oh, well, what is not feminine? Am I not being passable enough?
For all those people that really are well-meaning, but they're just so nervous about what might happen if I accidentally offend this person, if they accidentally misgender, is that something that's immediately offensive to you?
That's the best thing you can do. I highly encourage people to ask people's pronouns. If you don't know and you're like really unsure, it's okay to ask. My best advice to just anyone who accidentally misgenders anyone is just move on with it. Like, if you mess up, correct yourself and move on.
It's not like a death sentence to that relationship.
Yeah, no, like, unfortunately it does happen, but like, we're also human. Like, we mess up sometimes.
I sometimes get a little overwhelmed when somebody makes a really big deal out of it and they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I totally see you as a girl. Because then, especially if there's other people around, you become this like, it's like a pointing fingers, like, let's all talk about Dylan.
It becomes an event.
Yeah, it's an event and it doesn't need to be.
I feel like a lot of people are very, very scared to say the wrong thing, to say something offensive. I would say we're very resilient. We've been through like a lot of shit, and we're not going to like crumble after being misgendered one time. It's better for you to just make some mistakes and get to know trans people than to be so scared not to mess up and to never ever like even try to talk to a trans person.
Considering there are so many ideas about what the label trans means, how important do you think identity labels are?
I mean, I wish that they weren't so important. At least the label of being a trans woman's helpful to me because I now am finding a lot of happiness and euphoria through that. But I think labels really, what they do is they separate us. Our soul's gendered. I don't necessarily think so. I think there's something more to it than gender. I think it would be a disservice to try to blanket statement someone's all over being as a gender because it's such a small box.
When you break it down, you are the consciousness observing reality, observing your thoughts, observing your emotions.
Your internal conscience is still your guide and still knows things about yourself that the external can't even tell you.
I don't think labels are necessary. If you like them and you want to use them, like, have at it, use it. Yes, I'm trans, I'm not going to deny it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that I want to be labeled everywhere I go with a sticker on my forehead. Trans woman. I just want to be normal. Like, I want to feel normal.
As much as labels are a shorthand for understanding someone, it could also be a shortcut for someone to judge you. It's a one-word summary for someone, for a person, when in reality they are millions and millions of pages that would actually describe someone's entire life story.
Yes. If you don't like labels, don't use them. If you do like labels, use them for yourself. Don't put them on other people.
Can you tell me about the trans agenda? Oh, and if you were sitting there wondering, where are the trans men at? No worries, I Spent the Day with Trans Men is coming out next month. Don't you worry. And you know I can't go without thanking Dipsea for sponsoring this episode. Dipsea is an app full of short audio stories designed by women for women. Right, women? Damn right. They bring scenarios to life with immersive soundscapes and characters, and new content is released every week. So in between listening to your favorite stories again and again, you can always find something new to explore. Dipsea also has sleep stories, wellness sessions, and now they also offer written stories, so no matter how you want to enjoy those sweet sensations, you're set. And for I Spent a Day with viewers and listeners of the Uncensored podcast, Dipsea is offering an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipseastories.com/Padilla. That's 30 days of access for free when you go to DIPSEA stories.com/PADILLA. Now, back to the world of trans women. Can you tell me about the trans agenda?
Yes, the trans agenda. We're all in one group chat and we all talk and send cute little gifts and stickers.
There is no specific trans agenda. If there was a trans agenda, our agenda is we want to be loved. We want to have equal rights. We want to feel normal. We just want to exist.
I hear that it's in some ways what's called a wedge issue, meaning something that splits parties further apart to kind of indoctrinate people who are on the fence about which party they should lean toward by saying, oh, no, we got you.
A lot of people think that trans people are so out and proud to specifically get kids to transition. Transitioning isn't fun. I don't know where that comes in, where people think that trans people always want everyone to hurt as much as them. That's not the case.
That's a huge topic, is letting trans people use the appropriate restroom that they want. And here's the reality. A trans person is not going to attack you in the bathroom. If a man wanted to attack a woman that's using the restroom, he can just walk into the bathroom. He doesn't need to put on a dress and long hair to do it. There's something so toxic about looking at trans people like predators or looking at them as violent people, because we're more scared of you than you are of us at times. Yet the narrative is that it's all these people that are actually scared of us. That argument is so telling of where we are at when it comes to trans people. I'm not trying to invade your space. I'm just trying to go to the bathroom.
How do you feel about teens transitioning? There's a lot of debate about if a teen feels that they are trans or not the gender that was assigned to them at birth, that they should not be able to transition or take puberty blockers. How do you feel about all that?
In order to start HRT, you have to have a medical diagnosis. A lot of people have to go through like a psychiatric analysis and go to a primary care provider and get evaluated by both. It takes a lot of guts to come out as trans, and if a child is having those thoughts and they're coming to you, that's really hard to do for adults. But it's even harder to do for kids to like be honest with themselves about it.
I think if a teen feels comfortable presenting in the opposite gender, then I would say the correct course of action is puberty blockers if that's what they want. Puberty is like a very, in a way, traumatic thing. Puberty is what makes it so hard, makes it the reason you have to get surgeries. Like your bones form to a certain way.
And is this permanent?
No, it can be reversed. If a child starts puberty blockers and then decides to stop, the puberty will onset. And so you will end up going through puberty. There's not very many cases of a kid going on puberty blockers and then going off of at like age 30 or something and then hitting puberty. What we do know is if people go off of it and if they go off of it, it would be probably around that same young age or in their early 20s. They will still go through puberty.
I hear plenty of the conversation surrounding trans people. People bring up the amount of people that detransition. It's kind of painted as so many people regret transitioning, so then they detransition and then they still have regrets because they ever transitioned in the first place. How frequently does that happen?
The times that I see people detransition in media, that one person gets blasted and like posted all over media and how like trans people are invalid because this one person decided to detransition. I know a lot of trans people and none of them have detransitioned. We're all happier. We're all less suicidal, if suicidal at all, because we transitioned.
It's an extremely, extremely rare case. The satisfactory rate of HRT, of hormone replacement therapy, is 98%. Half of that remaining percentage may detransition because they are not accepted by family, by work, not able to get their medication. There are tons of reasons why people detransition, and I regretted it is the least common. But that small little fringe case sliver of people is what anti-trans people or TERFs or conservatives will focus on. And when you use this fringe case to limit all of the other 98% of people who are really happy with it and who it's life-saving, that's where I start to get like, okay, why are you so obsessed with detransitioners? People are so obsessed with this fringe case because they want to detransition us at the end of the day. And it's already happening in southern states for trans kids who now no longer have access to hormones. There are trans kids who are literally being detransitioned because they legally cannot transition anymore. And that's what's really depressing.
And what about the violence that trans women face?
It happens all the time. Just last year, around 45 trans people reported got killed. There's not that many trans people out there anyway, so killing 45 of us is a huge percentage of us. A lot of POC trans people receive the most violence. A lot of times the violence that is committed on trans people is by people who love us, as in like our lovers, people we have relationships with, people we have sexual relationships of. That's like the biggest number of people who are killing trans people.
If you could say one message to your younger self, that felt these feelings but didn't want to fully face them because of the stigma surrounding it, what would you say to that younger self?
Hi, baby Dylan. We have always been pretty fragile and we've been soft, and sometimes it works against us, but sometimes it really has value. And I think that your vulnerability is your power, your femininity is your power. I'm so happy that at one point you felt like your real self, and then we lost it for a while, but we found it again. And I'm here, and I'm telling you that it was worth it. It will all be worth it in the end, because babe, you're in a crocheted dress
With your name on it.
with my name on it. And you know what? You learned how to put fake eyelashes on, and you get to talk to really cool, interesting people, and you have a lot of people that love you, and it's a really beautiful thing.
What is it about being trans that brings you the most joy?
The most joy that I felt being trans is the trans community. It's the trans sisterhood of traveling pants, honestly.
I think it's undeniable how happy I am. I think that gives me so much joy to know that other people are looking at me in a way that goes, wow, that person really knows who they are. The joy comes from helping others and from in knowing that, like, it feels so good to wear what I want, let me tell you. And it feels so good to hear people say she.
Acceptance?
Yeah, that's joy for me.
I spent a day with trans women, and one thing that really sits with me is how the demands and the shame imposed on us by others can echo inside our heads and cause us to doubt or even hate ourselves. But that internalized limitation of who we think we should be for others may be the biggest hurdle in allowing us to truly enjoy happiness within the world and within ourselves.
I remember I was watching Smosh like as a kid, and there's like one episode where like you get boobs. I saw that and was like, oh,
Right, really?
is it possible?
Ian typed in on a
I
keyboard
saw-
that I have boobs, and then I had boobs.
Yeah, I remember I saw that. I was like, can I get a keyboard like that though? Can I get a keyboard? Like,
Did that start you down your
yeah, I
tracks?
was like, Anthony's onto something.
I
That
was there at the
keyboard.
beginning of your tracks.
Yeah, literally.